Hey guys, welcome back to Met Gala Luncheon. I'm your host, Sarah Van Turenhout, and I'm joined by
Rosalinda.
And this is the podcast where we break down our favorite reality TV shows and just dive into the craziness that ensues. This week, we're looking at episode 8 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Hot Tub Confessions.
That's just the funniest in terms of titles that we have.
It's like Hot Tub Time Machine, but not nearly as fun.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, so we start off on a lovely, cheery topic of some marriages in crisis. And we see Meredith in the store. She's FaceTiming with Brooks. And Seth comes in to the store.
Her husband.
Yes, obviously her husband. And so, yeah, no, he has come in because she called him kind of wanting to end the break and kind of figure things out. But while she's on a call with Brooks, and when Brooks sees his dad there, he just comes out of the gate being like, oh, well, I'm sad that you didn't come to my fashion show, this is like now a week or so later, and just kind of giving his dad a hard time. And I'm all about, giving men hard time. And, he should be called out. But at some point, it's just like, God damn, can you just say hello?
Yeah, no, that thing is that it makes me dislike Brooks even more. I mean, at first I thought he was kind of be cute, kind of Greek chorusy, kind of like the snark that you want in the background. But now it's just like, okay, I'm just going to be an emotionally manipulative person and I'm going to smirk about it, which is the thing that really upset me, because it was just like, he was just being so kind of rude and out there. And I mean, maybe it all comes from a place of hurt, which I do believe that it might. But then the fact that he smirks about it, like, I just want to make you feel bad. I'm just going to torture you. Doesn't make him seem like a very good person either.
Yeah, maybe he's just a little too much like his dad. But yeah, no, it was just very off-putting. And the dad can't catch a break. Brooks needs to take a chill pill,
right?
As they say.
And Meredith starts to explain about how she feels guilty about asking for space. Now, to me, it was like, look, your relationship wasn't working. You weren't happy. And, he was going off to Ohio to start a new project. And you were not willing to go with him and move your entire life this time. And they probably did need some time apart. So I think she shouldn't feel guilty about asking him for the space. They should feel guilty about not figuring out how to work that request around their family. So I don't think it was bad of her to ask for that space. I just think that all the stuff with Brooks and everything else was so muddled. They're not very good at being separated.
No, absolutely not. And actually in the conversation, we find out that they've been separated many other times, because she was like, this time we actually did separate and we didn't talk to each other. So this was different than any of our other separations.
Yeah, so this seems to be a theme in Meredith and Seth's marriage, which I can kind of see how that naturally happens because of Seth's job. But it just sounded like it was an actual separation. Like they were like, okay, we have a problem with our relationship. We're going to break up for a while. And they just don't know how to do it correctly. I mean, I think what they need is a good counselor to kind of walk them through on how to be separated.
Yeah, my thing is like, if you had to like lay out that you're separating more than once, maybe the problem isn't you guys individually. It's like maybe y'all are just not meant to be together.
Yeah, and Seth doesn't want to take any responsibility for this. Like, he wants to just say it's Meredith's fault. Like, she's the one that's being intransigent. She's the one that's like not wanting to yet again pick up and move again. I mean, that's the vibe we're getting. And obviously they're complex people. There are probably many other issues that are involved in their marriage. But what we see is basically Seth just wanting her to like pick up and follow him again.
Well, yeah. And he also, the main crux, I think, here though, was that he was blaming Meredith for him not going to Brooks's fashion show. He was like, well, you know why I couldn't go. Like, it was Meredith's fault. And yes, obviously she had something to do with it because she asked for space. But did Meredith say he wasn't allowed to go support his own son?
And clearly, since they've had many separations, they haven't been good at it. So this would have been one more time where they just would have not been good at it.
Like, come on. So, I mean, as much as you want to assuage your guilt that you didn't go to your own son's fashion show, it's not your wife's fault that you kind of are a dick and didn't want to, risk it just for your son.
Exactly. So, I mean, the whole thing felt really disingenuous. I don't see any good. I mean, it's either going to be like one of those couples that just stays together out of convenience and they do this all the time. So it's easier for them to do it. But otherwise, I just don't see much of a marriage there.
No, I don't. And I mean, of course, it doesn't help that we haven't seen a lot of scenes with them together, and all the scenes we see of them is them fighting. So obviously we have this like notion of their relationship, which is obviously very one-sided and just a piece of it. But regardless, I don't even see a friendship or like, honestly, I don't see what they have in common.
Well, and as we'll discuss later in the episode, we do see them together in a social setting later in the episode, and they're totally like kind of together, and it's really bizarre. So you don't really know where they are, because I mean, and when they are together, it's always awkward. It's like that weird walk they took.
Yeah, it just always is so contrived, and like that's what I think was so disingenuous was Meredith was like hugging and kissing him and like, oh, I really want to repair this relationship and I can't see my life without you. But the way she said it was like said with so little emotion, just kind of just like, yeah, I just can't see my life without you.
I know. And when she was kissing him, it felt gross.
Yeah, I didn't, the whole scene I disliked. But we then move on to another seemingly perfect marriage, but is secretly crumbling. Lisa and John, they are out. And the first thing Lisa kind of says when she sits down, this is in her confessional, mind you, but she was like, oh, well, it's pretty great to own a tequila brand company because I pretty much know every restaurant, bar, and club owner in the state. So let's just say it's not hard for me to get a reservation anywhere. Which is just like, oh my, like who asked? Like, why? You're going out to dinner. Why do I care?
Exactly. I'm just like, you have to show off yet again. And I don't even know what restaurant you're in Salt Lake City. So I'm not sure. I mean, it could be Denny's for all I mean, like, no, it was a really nice restaurant. Don't get me wrong.
I mean,
but like, I don't know where you're at, and like, is it hard to get into that restaurant?
I have no clue. It looked pretty empty. And, about the club thing, like how many clubs are in Salt Lake City? I mean, isn't it a mostly dry place?
No, Salt Lake City actually is the one place where you have a lot more bars and clubs, but still, it's not like, you're not talking about New York or LA.
Like, you don't so like 5?
Yeah, no. There's several, but it's not the bastion of the entertainment world. So
nobody's trying to hit you up to get into the club.
That's right. I don't think that you have to call in with a secret name to get in somewhere to get the corner table. I think she's okay.
No, but yeah. So besides that little pompous moment, I guess we see John kind of just trying to be honest about how he feels in this relationship, being like, I don't think you should take on more business stuff. I think we should, spend time with each other, please.
Which is now the second time he has explicitly asked for this to happen.
And she's just like, well, I don't need anybody telling me no. I know when to say no, so shut up, bitch. I mean, she didn't say that, but like that was pretty much the vibe she was giving off, was just like, I know what I want to do. We need to put on more business ventures. And I don't care that you're feeling left behind in this relationship because it works for me.
Yeah, and the thing is that they work together. Like literally, they own the business together. So my thing is that maybe she should take some advice from him, or maybe he should have some say-so into what it is. Because in the end, yeah, she's doing the moving and shaking, and she's probably a very hard worker, but he ends up having to do a lot of the work as well. So she's not checking with him to see how that is. And then he's just like, we have children. Like, we really need to focus on the children. And we kind of see the thing where you can understand why this is really upsetting, because when you see her setting things up at Sundance when she's running around, she's not really paying attention to anyone calling her on her phone, or she's not present. And so the kids definitely take the back seat when she's working.
Yeah, and he goes through the whole hierarchy of importances where, kids are first, businesses are second, their relationship is third, but
No, I don't
fake.
I don't think kids were first. I think it was like business first, then kids.
Oh, yeah, probably. No, it definitely is. And like, then he's like at the very bottom was whether they enjoy what they're doing because they
enjoyed being together.
Well,
it was
yeah.
it was really bizarre.
Because they were saying like, yeah, sometimes like they're doing so many things they don't even get to enjoy what they're doing, or much less, enjoy being with each other, which is kind of the whole point of being married, is it not? So she just doesn't really care, and she's all about adding more things to their plate when clearly they're already drowning.
And again, when she was putting out her yearly goal, she said she was going to listen, but she's not listening at all.
No.
and then she wants to demonstrate that she's the queen of multitasking.
Well, yeah, she said that in her confessional, like, I can text, I can sing Britney Spears in my head and answer your questions, and then literally, of course this is probably edited or whatever, but for a little shade, you see the producer ask her a question like, oh, well, did you enjoy dinner with John? And she's on her phone, and then she was like, oh, what did you say? So clearly was not paying attention. She can't multitask. There are so many cognitive psychology studies done. You can't split your brain. So as much as she thinks she's in 5 places at once, she's really in none of them.
Exactly. And then we kind of move on to see what Lisa's idea is about spending time with her kids. And for her, it's to include them in their business. And again, let's just say these children are small.
Yeah, I mean, because John was like, I think we should spend more time with the kids. And she was like, yeah, we should involve them more with what we're doing. And it's just like, no, we need to like go out to dinner and like have a movie night or something, be parents.
Yeah, I mean, I know as a working mother, there were times that, I drug you to events and things for work that I had to do. But we also had time where we like went out and did things. We like would go shopping, or we would go to the park, or we would do some other things with your friends. But yeah, this was like, oh no, let's just figure out how to make them work.
No, literally. I mean, I guess the free labor wouldn't hurt. But yeah, no, we see her kind of feel this guilt of being a working mother and a woman in business. And I think that's a valid concern. I mean, I think a lot of women can relate to that. And I mean, like my mom just said earlier, I mean, you can relate to that too, where, I mean, you have to travel a lot for work and sometimes they wouldn't get to see you. But like, you did stuff so we would spend time or sometimes with you or whatever. But Lisa's demonstrating this guilt and sadness, rightfully so, but she doesn't really seem to be wanting to unload anything so that she could spend more time with her children or her husband.
Yeah, her suggestions are like, oh yeah, we should take a family vacation together, or maybe we should do something else in the downtime. They're like, no, let's figure out how to incorporate them into our business.
Yeah, so it's just, I mean, I'm sure she actually is genuine, but it's just like, come on, man. Like, your whole thing is like, I want to make $1 billion in the next 5 years, but it's like, maybe it can take 10 years and you can just actually spend time with your kids.
Yeah, and plus you never know what's going to happen. And the interesting thing, I think, watching these things that were filmed before coronavirus is that obviously the kinds of things that she does were greatly impacted by the pandemic. She was going to need to stay home and like be with the kids. So the thing is I just think that they're probably having to figure out how to have a relationship in a different context because she was at home now. So,
I mean, like, here's hoping the quarantine has forced her to learn how to take a pause and, live life a little bit.
Yeah, that hopefully we'll see how that comes out in the next season. But then we move on to the second kind of topic of the episode, which was kids who are becoming parents.
Yeah, we see Whitney and Justin, her husband, on their way to the sober living facility where her father, Stephen, I believe, is staying. And
because she got a phone call from her dad.
Yes, an SOS text.
Because someone was going to be moving into his room.
Yes, he was going to get a roommate, and that was cause for concern, and he had to leave immediately. So they went to go have a mediation session. And pretty much we see them walk in, and they start off saying her dad was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to enter the real world. get back on the horse or whatever. And both of them are just like, so what are you going to do? Have you gotten a job? What's your plan?
Yeah, because basically he's again pushing for this. I think it's time for me to be more independent. I think it's time for me to, go out there and start the salon and get back into my life's work. And basically Whitney's like, hold the phone. Like, what are you going to do for money?
How are you going to buy the salon?
Like literally it's like, and it's like he's a grown man, obviously built his previous business up from the very beginning. He's not even thinking, I need to get a job to like get money first. Like I'm going to have to work for somebody else to be able to raise capital to be able to do that. I think he's just like, okay, well, I'm going to get out and Whitney's going to pay for everything. Whitney and Justin are going to like prop me up and maybe even find me a place to stay, pay for that, and then pay for my salon.
And pay for all my startup costs.
Yeah. And so Whitney's just like, she's like, okay, I need to set a boundary, which is really, really great of her. Because like sometimes when you see the way that they try to portray Whitney, and sometimes she comes off as a little ditzy or a little not serious, good time kind of party girl. But there's a lot to her, and she's a really wonderful, caring person. But she's also somebody who wants to like help her dad really badly because she really loves him, and she wants to be compassionate and caring. But she needs to set boundaries at this point.
No, because this is like not even the first time she has been expected to pay something for him, because the first time he went to rehab, he was like, oh yeah, you're gonna need to pay for this because I had you and I paid for your education and clothing and food, so you owe me one.
I know, he remembered an accident she had.
Yeah, he like pulled out a binder or something like, these are all the things I purchased for you, so you owe me. And she had a good line in her confessional where it's like, yeah, somehow it's my fault that he decided to have a kid, and so I need to pay for it. And he asked for $30,000, which is not a small chunk of change. And, she was rightfully outraged, but she did give it to him. And like I have seen recently, like on TikTok, there was this one girl who said her family like had a binder for each one of their kids and like had each receipt for everything that the parents paid for in their life, like food, gas, groceries, clothes, school, insurance, doctor's appointments, etc. Had it all in a binder, and their parents expected them to pay it off at the end, which is just like so fucked up.
Yeah, it is one of those things. It's like, yeah, you decide to be a parent and have a child, and then you're going to expect them to pay the tab at the end of it.
It's like, none of us asked to be born, so like, that's on you to pick up the tab.
Exactly. To a degree.
Well, no, I know, but like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be paying you back for the time you bought me baby, food.
Yeah, I know. But if you start like, going out and ordering luxury, maybe Prada purses with my credit card, then I might want you to pay me back, but we'll get to that later.
Fair enough. But no, I don't think that Whitney, her dad was entitled to $30,000 for his rehab just because he raised her. But no, so she's definitely setting up some good boundaries.
And by the end of that conversation, he does say, I love you very much. I thank you. I appreciate for everything you've done. And he seems to at least capitulate a little bit. That like, okay, maybe I was pushing it too far, and I understand, and I respect the boundaries that you've set. And so
for now.
Yeah, for now. So we got to see where that goes.
But yeah, we move on, and we finally get some group action that we have been asking for. We see more than two ladies together, and with their significant others.
Yeah, and again, it's an excuse for them to put on those really fancy ski clothes.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes, they go on a couple's ski date kind of thing. Well, it's really like a snowmobile date. And so, yeah, you see all the couples. We see Meredith and Seth. We see Lisa and John. We see Jen and Coach Shaw Sharif, which was actually pretty fun to see. Because I don't think we've really seen them together besides the first episode and their confessional.
Yeah, I think we see him right after the Met Gala themed party for
Meredith.
Yeah, when he comes back from his
his coaching thing, whatever, practice.
Yeah. Well, he was out of town, right? Maybe he had been recruiting and he came back.
Yeah.
And we see him briefly then. But we haven't seen too much of them together.
No. And we have our lovely stag, Heather. And she comes in as the single writer, which, no shame, girl.
Yeah, I think it was really great for her to show up and like be so positive to be around all these couples, because I know sometimes that might be intimidating. And I think even more so for her, because again, not having a man to her feels like a failure. Not having a relationship feels like a failure. But she's like, fine, I'm going to go have a good time with my girls. And even if they're with their husbands, I'm all good about it. Yeah. And they get to do the most awesome snowmobiling. It's so cool.
No, it's so cool.
And she gets to be the single rider. And I will tell you, I got to do snowmobiling a few years ago. And luckily, I was a single rider. It was awesome. And I was sitting there just jealous the entire time.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you. I am green with envy.
But it looked like they had fun, except it was really funny because for some reason they were all kind of not very good snowmobile drivers.
They all suck.
So they were there, like, except for Heather, Heather was on her single riderness and she was just having fun.
No, I mean, if anyone wants to drop in the comments, is it easy to flip over a snowmobile? Those things look heavy. So like, I don't know how they have like at least 2 or 3 crashes kind of where they tump over. But it was just, again, bravo with the lovely shade. We see edits of the couples falling over, and then we see we see Heather just living her best life, like zooming along, like going over hills and through the woods. And the other ones are just like stuck in the middle, just all like fell over, which was just really funny. But we also see Jen kind of confused about Meredith and Seth's relationship, because here Seth comes in, and of course Jen doesn't have the background information that Meredith called Seth to come over to help fix, the relationship, and that their separation or space really was over. And so Jen kind of sees this in a vacuum where like Seth has missed his son's first fashion show, but decides to come to a snowmobile date randomly in the middle of the week. So of course she is confused, and in the confessional she's still stirring the pot, being just like, we know she has another man and this is so weird, and what should we expect?
Yeah, it was just really weird of her just like looking over at them and like, ooh, look, they're all touchy-feely and this whole thing. And then, I don't know. Again, this whole thing where that, in the next episode or the following one, she's going to spill to a bunch of people what she knows.
Oh, I mean, I think everyone already knows. They just haven't talked about it yet. It's just Jen being Jen, and I don't know why we're expecting anything else. And speaking of people on brand, we see Lisa, who's always trying to show off and humble brag, where they're talking about, their snowmobiling. And so then she was like, oh yeah, I got my first snowmobile when I was 4 or 5. And then she goes on for like this 3-minute long story about her first time on a snowmobile with her sister and how her sister almost killed her or whatever, but had like no relevance to what was happening in the show, or like, I mean, in general. I honestly don't know why I know this story about her now, but I think the whole point of that story was just so that we would know that she got a snowmobile when she was 4 or 5.
Exactly, and she thinks that her sister's a pain.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think it was really rude when Whitney and Heather were just like talking about, what she had heard from Jen. And, they're like, well, what do you think about that? And they're like, well, she said, to ask Meredith. Right. And so, they were like, are you going to ask Meredith? And I'm like, nope. I'm like,
yeah, no, because I mean, Whitney goes over to Heather at the end of their thing and was just like, oh, have you heard about this, that Meredith might be seeing someone on the side? And Heather was actually kind of coy about it, because she was like, oh, yeah, I heard about it a little bit. Like, yeah, Jen told me. But in the confessional, she had told us that apparently the night before, Jen had showed her a photo of Meredith with someone. And Jen had apparently acted like, this is just between you and I. We can't tell anybody. We're taking this secret to the grave type thing. And I guess, obviously, Jen had shown Whitney that photo too. So, Jen is just planting little seeds of doubt everywhere. And Whitney is just the latest, fertile ground, I guess if you want to say. And she tries to get more information out of Heather. And, as much as Whitney wanted to gossip with someone, Heather was not playing ball.
Yeah, no, it was like, I think Heather is just like, I'm going to be the bigger person. This isn't something that I like to traffic in, and we're just going to move on. But from there, here's the other weird thing too. It was like, Coach Shaw is only in town for like a day, right? So you would think that, considering that Jen is like, I'm lonely. We never spend time together. It's really sad. They has one day. She decides to have a little play date right after the snowmobile event. Like maybe Coach Shaw wants to come back and, have some time with this woman and kind of have a nice time because he's going to leave the next day and they don't get to see each other very much. But no, she decides that they have to have a soiree at the Shaw Chalet.
The Shawski Chalet, yes. And we see them getting ready for the people coming over. And this is just like a dumb thing I want to point out. But the stars, they're just like us. If you look in the background of the shot, there is a coffee maker and we own the same coffee maker. So you know what? We're just like them. We, we also have a ski chalet.
Yes, they have much more counter space than we have.
But we have the coffee, whatever, the KitchenAid coffee maker. So if you want to be like us, stars, you can
KitchenAid,
buy it.
If you'd like to sponsor us,
yes.
happy to, or whatever coffee, we'd be happy to break that down as well. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see the men actually having some conversations. They were talking about the differences between Mormonism and Muslims, and they were just kind of joking around about the wife.
Yeah. So like Seth was kind of like the mediator between John and Coach Shaw Sharif. And they were like, okay, so can you do this in Islam? And then like, okay, John, like, is that okay in Mormonism? And then they would go back and forth. And so Seth was asking Sharif, oh, can you have multiple wives? And he was like, well, that's still permissible. And Jen was like, no, it's not. And she rightfully said in the confessional, being married to Jen Shaw is like being married to 45 women. And you know what? I don't think that's an exaggeration.
He is correct. So yeah, so it was interesting to see. I mean, that kind of we start learning a lot more about how they look at their religious backgrounds. And I just loved listening to Lisa break down how she's Mormon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting how the conversation even came up, though, because Coach Shaw was just like, so, Lisa, what do you think about, does owning a liquor company, conflict with your faith? Which, you know what? I think Coach Shaw would have been a perfect housewife. He knows just how to poke them where it's nice and hot.
I know. And she's just like, oh, no. She's like, I'm not, she's like, I'm not culturally a Mormon.
Yeah, just a religious Mormon. Aren't they the same?
And so it was really funny where it was just like, well, the way I look at it is like, I look at what the tenets of Mormonism, and then I choose, which one of those things is. And it's a very personal thing. I'm like, Mormonism isn't really like that. There's super codified rules about being Mormons. They're like, they didn't let people of color in for a while.
Well, and she was just like, people want to put the LDS faith in a box. They're like, you have to do this, 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 and this to be a LDS. And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how religion works. I don't think that's like putting you in a box. I think that's just like, do you agree to these set of terms and conditions? Yes or no? And unlike the iPhone terms and conditions, you actually have to read them. You can't just be like, I'll take this and that. We actually have a term for that in the Catholic Church.
Cafeteria Catholic.
Yes. And so, my little moniker on this, Lisa is a marketplace Mormon. I know, it's a horrible little whatever.
Yeah, but she just goes in there and picks and chooses what she wants and puts it in her basket and walks out the door.
And she's like, yes, I'm LDS, which fine. She can be LDS if that's how she wants to be. But it's just like, what? No, that's not how religion works.
Well, in her LDS family, porn is one of the 10 commandments.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I don't know. The thing that rubbed me the wrong way about it is just like, she's like, oh, well, because Heather was talking about how she was really stigmatized from the church for, being divorced or whatever. And Whitney too for, being essentially a homewrecker, and getting exiled. And they were like, yeah, the Mormon church is very judgmental or whatever. And Lisa's like, oh, well, I've never experienced that. Like, that's not my experience in the LDS church, and nobody's really judgmental. And it's like, clearly for you, like, because you're probably hanging out with other cafeteria Mormons who are just like pick and choose what we want to follow, which is fine, do your own thing, but you can't invalidate other people's experiences in the religion.
Yeah, and to me, it was a very odd party in that, okay, they went back. It was very informal. It was like basically, really high-end snacks or like a little buffet, kind of dinner. And then like all of a sudden in the middle of this, kind of interesting conversation of what they thought about religion and whatever, Jen just shuts it off and they're like, "It's hot tub time." And it was like, what? Huh? And then you're like, okay. So then they go off and I was like, did they know to bring swimsuits for the hot tub? Because they seemed to like be a little bit taken like aback, like, huh?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So then they come out and they're like, I don't know, the Lady Marmalade of people going to the hot tub. I mean, she has some kind of fur boa thing.
Yeah, they all had like little fur coats, like, little shawls, I guess.
Yeah, and like wraps, like cover-ups to go to the Shaw hot tub.
Yeah.
And then they get in the hot tub. And again, I'm sure it's just about editing. But it seems like they just come in hot. Like, it's like, okay.
In the hot tub.
I know. It's like, so here Jen is all of a sudden spilling, like, the sadness of what she feels her marriage is because, she's so lonely.
No, yeah, that she just like never sees Sharif and it's really hard. And, she hates that Sharif didn't go to her dad's funeral. And she's worried about how when Omar, I believe her youngest son, goes off to college, like what she's going to do. And like actually Meredith has some good insights. It's just, again, communication, which is, I guess, ironic from the person who cannot communicate with her own husband telling Jen to communicate with her husband, with Jen to communicate with Sharif. But yeah, no, we have like, it's back and forth between the women and men. They kind of have very parallel conversations. They're both talking about their marriages and their relationships. And, my dream was fulfilled. We got to see the men in action. I got to see Coach Shaw hanging out with the other dads. Without Robert Sr., my dreams and prayers have been answered.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was interesting to me was, here's Jen saying, I'm lonely. I don't get any time with him alone. Like, you just invited everybody over to your house on the one evening that you had to be with your husband.
And, Sharif brought up a good point, too, though. It's like, he said that his wife Jen works more than he does hour-wise, and we did look this up. She owns like 5 different businesses or something, so she's always traveling. And so he brought up the point that it's unfair that Jen waits his time away from her more heavily than her time away from him. So there seems to be a little bit of, hypocrisy here, where she's always traveling and doesn't acknowledge that when Sharif's home, she's gone, and when Jen's home, Sharif's gone.
Yeah, she made it seem like Sharif was gone all the time, which is kind of true. I mean, he says this too, that, it's a year-long job for him in terms of being coach and having to recruit and doing everything. But he also says at the same time, well, I'm home. I just am never home she's never home at the same time I am. And, what we've heard from Jen is that like, he's always gone and we have this FaceTime marriage and it's really, really hard. So it was nice to know that it's a little bit of both of them, like having these very kind of busy jobs. And that's part of the reason. But it seems like Jen doesn't really recognize that.
No, I mean, Jen lives in the Jen Shaw world and she's not responsible for anything. It's always Sharif's fault. But then we also see Lisa talking about her relationship with John and how she just expects John to take care of her every single need. Emotionally, physically, mentally, the whole gambit. But she doesn't really seem to have any interest for reciprocating that. It's kind of like John is her loyal servant and must be at her beck and call, and why would she have to, help him or be there for him when he's clearly begging for, some attention.
Yeah, that was very clear. And again, it shows that Lisa looks at him more like an employee or like someone who signed up for something and this is just his role. And so she doesn't have to have a relationship with them. It's more like, these are my expectations of what you should do. You need to do them. If you don't, you're not really, fulfilling your contract.
Yeah, you're fired. But yeah, no, overall, it seems like none of these relationships know how to communicate, or, these people know how to communicate with each other. Because at the end of the day, all of it boils down to none of them really talk to their partners, and they're all upset with each other, and they don't know why. And really, if they just had the 30-minute conversation where they weren't yelling at each other, they probably could figure it out.
Yeah, and you kind of see that from both sides. You see that from the boys hanging out in the big playroom and the girls in the hot tub. So, I think, some marriage counseling sessions, maybe that should be a new thing that Heather offers at her...
The beauty lab.
The beauty lab. Like, you'd have, like, couples...
Botox and...
and couples counseling.
Couples counseling. Yep. I mean, it does help the skin look younger.
When you're relaxed and good,
yeah. But yeah, that pretty much does it for the episode. We have a really cool sneak peek into next week's episode, and I'm really excited. Honestly, I can't wait. This is probably the most drama we've seen in a preview for next week's episode. So we see there's just like a ton of fights. It's Coach Shaw's hip hop birthday, and shit goes down.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be some serious mess. So I'm super excited. But just to point this out again, it seems like, the first 4 episodes had all these like to be continued. And then you had this like whole sequence of episodes where you see these vignettes of the women and all these things. It kind of feels like that should have somehow been flipped. I get that chronologically that wouldn't work, but it just, I don't know, the editing seems a little bit really off. And so I'm glad that we've worked ourselves back up into a frenzy, because literally I kind of feel like, okay, well, I know a lot more about these women and their relationships and kind of their thoughts and their outlooks, and a little bit more about, their family dynamics. And now they're going to go have a big old fight. So I'm excited. So bring it on.
No, 100%. I mean, we see Jen Shaw throw a glass at a Topgolf. So I'm excited to see the stuff that led up to it. I'm just excited to see the women all together again, because we haven't really seen them all together in one place, kind of at a party like setting
since the Met Gala luncheon.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. So, as well as that win, I'm sure this party will go just as well. But yeah, that pretty much does it for our episode. We will see you in the next one.
And we hope to get back on track. I know we kind of started a little bit late this season, but we are very appreciative to our loyal listeners. So again,
we should be up to date by this weekend. This podcast will be going out on Wednesday, which is probably when you're hearing this, or later. But yeah, we should be up to date. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a comment, a review, and subscribe to us. Follow us on our socials. We really appreciate y'all listening, and we will see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.